And now we get to the concept of American innovation. Several things happened uniquely in America that caused America to go from being way behind Europe, still kind of stuck in the Renaissance period, to not only getting caught up more or less with where Europe was musically, but in many ways leaping forward and becoming a cultural leader. Let's talk about that. It all happened in the 1800s, and there were several branches that came together. I think I could call it American Revivalism, or maybe I'd prefer to say American Innovations. First of all, the Great Awakening, which happened way back, 1730 to 1750. It was the preaching of Jonathan Edwards, and as we already talked about, George Whitefield. It was the hymns of Watts. It was centered in New England, but most of the materials that were being sung were from England, not from America. Nonetheless, that was the first wave of revival. There was a second Great Awakening in the early 1800s. Many of those who are watching this video will know about the Cane Ridge revival that happened in Kentucky, the preaching of McGreedy and Stone and all that. What you probably haven't covered much is, so what was the music like? Well, it was a lot of camp meeting songs. Now, camp meeting songs would be making use of contrafactum, remember that from the Lutherans, that you take an already known tune and you establish new words for it. And so there were some fairly well-known, American folk tunes, such as the one used for Brethren, We Have Met to Worship. Brethren, we have met to worship and adore the Lord our God. Will you pray with all your power while we try to preach the word? All is vain unless the Spirit of the Holy One comes down. Brethren, pray and holy manna will be showered all. And the one that we set to Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. What's more, there were folk hymns that would be learned very easily. What you'll notice about almost all of these is they're pentatonic, Dorian hexatonic, such as Wondrous Love. What wondrous love is this, O my soul, O my soul? What wondrous love is this, O my soul? What wondrous love is this that caused the Lord of bliss to bear the dreadful curse for my soul, to bear the dreadful curse. And then I Love Thee is another tune. Or Kedron, which became quite popular in later folk hymn collections. All right, so that was some of the music. Now, the way that the words would often be sung, because people were there at the camp meetings, 10,000 of them gathered together and scattered about, and there'd be one preacher standing on a stump here and another. They've built a special stage for another one over there, and people are gathered around there, and they start to sing. Nobody's got a hymn book, or at least they don't all share the same hymn book, because they're from multiple denominations. So what are they going to sing? Well, they're going to sing something that's kind of a call and response, such as down by the riverside, oh, down by the riverside, oh, down by the riverside, gonna lay down my burden. All right, so everybody can sing that little refrain. That's a song that's going to work as a camp meeting song. So these camp meeting songs began to be sung. When the tunes begin to be written out, they are often in shape notes. The first Great Awakening was centered in New England. The second one was centered in Kentucky. There were also evangelistic revivals that were happening just half of a generation from that under the preaching of Finney, centered on the frontier west of the Appalachians, which means most of western New York State. Now, they put together a hymnal in 1841 called The Christian Lyre, and it contained some tunes that appeared for the first time. One example is the tune So what we're having is these simple folk tunes that are being put together with simple evangelistic or revival words happening in America because it wouldn't have happened anywhere else. It takes this sort of low culture, emotional, spiritual revival atmosphere for these things to take place. Then another movement, again, half of a generation later, was the Sunday school movement. It started with Methodists, small groups that they call class meetings, and moved to the various Baptist denominations. Now, Sunday school is about learning how to read. It's also learning Bible stories mostly. But you'd always begin Sunday school with opening exercises, and that's where the music comes in. So everybody's gathering together. You're going to sing a song or two. Well, it needs to be something that children can sing, adults can sing. You can print it, the music, but it's whatever it is going to have to be very simple because children are going to have to catch on to it. In Cincinnati, there was a composer named William Bradbury, and he helped to pull together a lot of this and to publish a lot of the songs that came to be known as Sunday school songs. You had writers like Fanny Crosby, Robert Lowry, William H. Doane, also from Cincinnati, and the Sunday school movement was a tremendous catalyst for this same sort of American innovation. Another American innovation was the YMCA, the Young Men Christians Association, as well as the Salvation Army, which began in England, moved over to America. These were movements that were large-scale evangelism. It was the Promise Keepers movement of a century before. Some have called this the Second Great Awakening. When you put all of these different things together, it was really, as much as anything, a social reform movement where we were focused on a person's physical needs as well as their spiritual needs. YMCA now is known mostly for the physical side, that it's a place where you can go to play sports and to be in shape, and the inventors of basketball and whatever, but the spiritual component is really where it all started, and it used to be that there would be gatherings with thousands of people. There's one more element that we have to bring together that's going to make this American innovation work, and that is U.S. copyright law. The United States, still a young country, made the decision that there is such a thing as intellectual property as well as physical property, and that somehow it should be treated in the same sort of way as physical property. And so we must protect the songwriters, and no one else can copy their music without permission, which means without paying for it. Because of all that, in America, it became possible for a person to make money in music publishing. In America, with all these revival movements, they were cross-denominational, they were experiential, they were new, they were innovative, and they were lucrative for those who were publishing. And so, one last factor, and that is the evangelistic crusades of Dwight L. Moody and of several others. That last quarter of a century in the 1800s, he would travel around with Paul Sankey, Philip Bliss. The music evangelist would lead in several songs. Well, those songs just happened to be available in a book that anybody could could purchase. So everybody hears Moody is coming to town. 10,000 people come from all different churches. Some have never been to church before. They hear these new songs that are just so stirring, give their life to Christ. At the end of the meeting, there's the opportunity to buy the book. And so they buy the book and they go back to their churches, these 10,000 people, perhaps at 200 different churches, and all of them have the same book. What they have is the American innovation, the American gospel song,